Do you want to see how I cook with basic food storage? Hey Provident Preppers, I'm Kylene, and we've had a lot of requests on how to cook with basic food storage. And so I'm just bringing you into my kitchen today, and I'm going to show you exactly what I do. My apologies up front because I am more of a dumper than a measurer. But hopefully this will give you a little bit of an idea of how you can really work with your food storage. Now, I am not a fan of buying food storage and putting it away for 25 or 30 years. Do I like that shelf life? Absolutely. But I think as we rotate through our food storage, it has a higher nutrient content and it's always fresher. And so that is our goal. And you'll notice we have a combination of all kinds of things here. So I have a meeting in 1 hour, and I won't be able to be back until dinner time. So this is perfect. Today, I'm just going to make some soup. And what I've taken is just the basic stuff that we have around. There's a little bit of water in here, and you can use broth if you would like. Today, I'm just gonna use water. Can of corn, a can of green beans, and you notice I'm using the liquid. Why throw that liquid away when it makes fantastic soup? Now these are bottled carrots that we pressure can, and we don't ever eat them unless they have been heated, just in case of botulism. The chance is really slim because we follow the appropriate canning techniques, but by putting it in the crock pot and warming it in the soup, we don't ever have to worry about that. And the same thing with the meat. I always make sure that I bring it up to a good temperature and let it simmer for a while. And that's just some that we had bottled last year. And these are tomato juice from our garden. Do you see how easy this really is? Now, what's on here are actually a potato that I cut up. We do store them all winter. This is a piece of zucchini that was in the fridge that was starting just to go the way of all the earth. And so I'm just putting it in here. And that's one of the good things about making soup, is that you can take all kinds of vegetables. This is a Hamburger vegetable soup, and you can add all kinds of different things to it so that you're using up what you have and rotating it. Garlic from our garden and parsley from my indoor garden. If you don't have fresh parsley or fresh garlic, doesn't matter. You can always use dried, and that's great. Also had greens in the fridge, and so that's just some nice greens to help it be healthier. Salt, I always like to use pink Himalayan. I'm going to use about 2 teaspoons in here because the carrots already had salt, and the hamburger had salt, and the tomatoes had salt. So I'm not going to need a whole lot of salt in here. Italian seasoning is just a good seasoning to put in. And so I'll put 1 teaspoon of that in there. And I always love pepper. And so put about ½ teaspoon of pepper in there. Now, some of the really cool stuff that I have that's always a staple. These are just dried onions. And I do have some freeze-dried ones that I've done that I love, but most of the time when I'm just adding it to soups, I will use these. I will leave a link for these. We are not affiliates at all for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but this is the cheapest place to buy some of the food storage, and so I'll leave a link so that you can get it. But this is always something that I have in my pantry because dried onions make things taste so much better. Now, here's some of the freeze-dried celery that we freeze-dried not very long ago. And I'm just going to dump the recipe. I don't want the oxygen absorber to go in there. The recipe actually calls for 2 stalks, but remember, I'm a dumper, and so I do all kinds of things. Now, this is something super yummy. My sister freeze-dried asparagus for me. No, I hadn't done that yet. And it's just delicious. And so I'll put some of the freeze-dried asparagus in there. And last of all, I have some freeze-dried peas that we did, but This from Valley Food Storage. It has actually been in our storage for a while, so I want to use it first. So now, seriously, that is as hard as it is. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit more water to this so that it's just the right consistency. I'm gonna put this on low. That way when I go away today, when I come back, it'll be perfectly ready. Now, let me get this started, and then let me show you how I'm gonna make hot, fresh bread that's gonna make my house smell so good, ready when we come home too. I've got all the ingredients in the slow cooker, and it is starting to work its magic. But one of the things that I forgot to mention that is so fantastic about the soup is that it doesn't matter if you don't have bottled carrots. You could use dehydrated carrots, freeze-dried carrots, fresh carrots, or you could leave the carrots out, right? So I know that I have a lot of things that I have bottled and preserved here at home, but you can, with the soup, you can substitute so many other things and still have really delicious results. So now, I'm gonna show you our little bread maker. Okay, this is a zojirushi, and one of the reasons why I like it is because the loaf pan looks more like a normal loaf. So when the kids went to college, we actually looked online, and on one of the indoor yard sales, we bought a bread maker for them so that before they went to class in the morning, they could just put the ingredients in it, push the button, and when they came home, they would have a hot loaf of bread. But it's one of the ones that stands up tall, which is fine. It's just not a beautiful loaf. And this is kind of new for me, this bread machine, because for so long I've only been able to make the large batches due to the size of my family. But now that we've got some people moving out and we've got just a few more or a few less people here, this one is kind of really nice. And it's so easy to be able to rotate your food storage. So I'm still perfecting this recipe because I don't like exactly what it is in the book, because I like to use some different ingredients. So sometimes my loaves have been falling, and they still taste great, but I've had some issues with that, so I'm still trying to perfect it. With this one, the first thing that you put in is your water. And then this calls for this, I'm just gonna use 100% whole wheat flour. Now the recipe that I've adapted from Zojirushi's book this is a walnut, 100% whole wheat walnut bread, but I'm not gonna put the walnuts in here because this is supposed to go with my soup. So 3, 4, and 1/3 cup. And one of the problems with the bread machine is that you have to measure things really exactly. And remember, I'm a dumper, so sometimes it just doesn't turn out as well. The recipe calls for gluten. And I'm not gonna add gluten, although the gluten makes the bread really light and fluffy. Instead, we use sunflower lecithin. And this is really hard to measure. And so the way that we measure it is just by putting about a quarter size piece in here, a quarter size lump of this stuff. And then this recipe calls for dry milk, which is something that we always have in our storage, 2 tablespoons. Now, you don't have to use dry milk if you're avoiding dairy. But if you notice, this is actually from 1998, and we are using it, and it's still good. It's still just fine. The next thing, the recipe calls for sugar, but I'm not going to use the sugar. I'm using honey instead. It calls for a little bit of honey, but I'm just adding a little bit more. It also calls for butter, but I'm substituting coconut oil. So you can mix things up however you want and whatever ingredients you happen to have on hand, or accommodate families for allergies or what have you there. And then salt, 2 teaspoons, 1, 2, and 2 teaspoons of the yeast. Now, if you click the card in the corner, it will take you to a post that, or a video that we did on yeast and how to store it long term, because that's really important. I do a lot of natural yeast too, but we keep this. And that's all it takes to make bread. This is 100% whole wheat. And what I'm gonna do is I'll just take it over here and snap it into this. push a few buttons, get it started, and when we come home, not only will we have hot soup ready, but we'll have a hot loaf of bread and the house will smell amazing.
It's been kind of a long day and we are really ready to eat. So Mama's prepared all this absolutely wonderful food and we are anxious to chow it down.
Okay, so this all cooked when we were gone. And remember how I talked about the bread, how I've been having issues with it falling because I haven't perfected this recipe yet? So it did fall again, see? My fault, I've got to perfect this. But this is 100% whole wheat, right? And so I think if I added some white flour, it would be better, but then also it wouldn't be quite as healthy. Taste, nutrition.
It's all a balance, you know, you just have to, and it takes practice. We have to figure these things out. We want to figure them out now, so
and where do you like the balance to be, Johnny?
I love,
or nutrition?
Oh, I think you can hit both. It's just a matter of finding that balance in there somewhere. So anyway.
All right, so the soup's totally done. And you know, it turns out different every time because it's a food storage recipe, right? And we've got all kinds of good, delicious things in it. And then there's Johnny's bread. I should have gotten you out butter.
Or jam.
Or jam.
Oh, we love jam on it.
Hold on, wait 1 second. Okay, I got the raspberry jam.
And it's time to chow it down. We'll give you a report.
All right, so food storage, it actually can be really fast if you have the right tools. I love the bread maker just because I can just put stuff in and then leave it. And when I come home, the house smells great, the food's hot, slow cooker, it all makes a really big difference. So how is the bread?
Very good.
You like it?
Very good. Texture's good. Flavor's good. The jam is good.
Life is good. What about we now? It's for the question of the day.
And now for the question of the day. What is your favorite food storage recipe? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.